And President Trump says something good just may be on the horizon with peace talks between Russia and Ukraine. The president discussing trade and the upcoming state visits with the Chinese Communist Party chairman Xi Jinping. We now go live to NTD's Washington correspondent Mari Otsu, who's standing by at the White House. Good evening, Mari.
Good evening, Steve. Yes, today President Trump is expressing optimism, saying that he's hopeful about a Russia-Ukraine peace deal after the talks on Sunday in Geneva between U.S. and Ukraine. This is coming after President Trump criticized Ukrainian leadership earlier Sunday, saying that they'd expressed, quote, zero gratitude for his administration's continued efforts at brokering peace in the region, to which Ukrainian President Zelensky responded by thanking President Trump and a flurry of world leaders. And while the White House says that there's currently no meeting scheduled between President Trump and President Zelensky, Secretary of State Marco Rubio says that he's very optimistic about the deal. Watch.
We arrived here today with one goal, and the goal was to take, what, 28 points or 26 points, depending on which version as it continued to evolve, and try to narrow the ones that were open items. And we have achieved that today in a very substantial way.
This is coming as the U.S. and Ukraine release a joint statement saying there's now a refined peace framework after talks in Geneva Sunday.
It is probably the most productive day we have had on this issue. Maybe in the entirety of our engagement, but certainly in a very long time.
The Kremlin saying that the U.S. proposal could, in principle, form the basis for a final peace settlement, and the White House pushing back on critics who call the proposed peace plan a setback for Ukraine.
The idea that the United States of America is not engaging with both sides equally in this war to bring it to an end is a complete and total fallacy. I have watched as the president and his team have worked around the clock overnight with both sides on endless phone calls, endless meetings to try to bring this war to a close.
And saying it wants to stick to President Trump's Thursday deadline for Ukraine to accept the plan. Meanwhile, President Trump says he discussed Russia-Ukraine, fentanyl, soybeans, and other farm products with CCP leader Xi Jinping on the phone today.
Almost 1.5 million metric tons. We have every indication they will continue to buy soybeans, sorghum, etc. But it goes to the larger effort of President Trump. We can't be so reliant as Americans producing American products on one country, a foreign adversary.
President Trump also announces that he'll be visiting Xi Jinping in Beijing in April at Xi's invitation, after which Xi will then come to the U.S. for a state visit later that year. Steve?
Certainly something there to keep an eye on, Mari, as they appear to have pulled back from the edge of a full-blown trade war back when they met in South Korea. In the meantime, this issue of the CCP remains to be seen if the CCP will ultimately hold up to their end of the deal. Mari, with that said, what's the latest on the executive order the president signed earlier today?
Sure, Steve. So today, President Trump signed an executive order directing Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent and Secretary of State Marco Rubio to begin designating certain chapters of the Muslim Brotherhood as foreign terrorist organizations. The order cites the group's involvement in violence across the Middle East, including working with Hamas and Hezbollah terror groups in the aftermath of the October 7 attacks on Israel. It also says that the Muslim Brotherhood engages in and supports violence that harms both U.S. citizens and U.S. interests, with attacks that threaten Americans as well as U.S. partners in the region. The designation would bring sanctions against the group and create powerful criminal, immigration, and diplomatic tools to go after them and anyone who supports those groups. Steve, back to you.
NTD's Mari Otsu live from the White House. Thank you, Mari.